Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Art Fennell Reports. I'm Art Fennell. So whether it's on the court, the football field, or the baseball diamond, the professional athletes are fortunate to know and understand the sport that they've mastered on an elite level. They work hard at it, 8 to 10 hours a day, sometimes even more, working to try and be the best. But you know, with so much focus on perfecting their craft, it's easy to see how making sure that other things are in order can sometimes fall through the cracks, and that can be tough to manage, particularly when it comes to their image. This can easily leave athletes at risk in so many ways, in the limelight for whatever their talent is. But what happens when all you have is your name and your reputation, and that's being used without your consent, being used, possibly even tarnished? Athletes from college and the pros are taking corporations now to court over this exact matter. Take a look at two cases that were just resolved recently involving both college and professional athletes. The Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals agreed with a lower court that EA Sports, Electronic Arts, used the images of its video games of several NCAA players without their permission. Now, this decision came just 2 weeks after E lost the rights to another case that they cannot use the NCAA's logo in games beyond this year. Now, there's another case as well. Former Chicago Bulls forward Scottie Pippen filed a lawsuit claiming that media outlets falsely reported he was broke and filed for bankruptcy when he says that he never did anything like that, and the courts ruled against him. Anyway, Scottie Pippen subsequently was thrown out of court, so to speak. We're going to talk about this. We have guests here who are familiar with this topic, and one in particular is going to be talking about this, and that is Lloyd Remick. He is an attorney who concentrates his practice in the areas of entertainment, sports, hospitality, and communications law. He's the president of Zane Management Incorporated, a Philadelphia-based sports entertainment and communications consulting and management firm, and he's a contract advisor with the National Football League's Players Association and the NCAA, representing a lot of individuals. Some of you know, for example, the voice of Philadelphia Eagles for more than 35 years, the one and only Merrill Reese is one of his clients. Also, the oldest boxer to win a major title, the executioner, IBF light heavyweight champion Bernard Hopkins, and finally, Philly natives and extraordinary musicians, actors Kevin and Michael Bacon, the Bacon brothers. Just a couple of the people that he represents. Believe me, he has many, many more. Also on the program is Anees Taylor. Now, Anees is a Philadelphia-based entertainer and entrepreneur, and he is a former NCAA Division I basketball player who says his likeness was used without his consent. And we're going to hear more about Anees' story as well. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
For being here. Lloyd, let me start with you because there's a lot to chew on in this. You know these athletes and their stories and their histories very well. And on the one hand, they're high-paid athletes who are very good in the sports they've chosen, but their image is very important to them. And when someone's using that without their consent, they have a right to be upset about it, don't they?
They sure do. The law provides remedies for that. And there is a tort known as the right of publicity. And the right of publicity says, in effect, that each individual's name, image, likeness, if it has commercial value, that individual should control that commercial value. So if people take it, they either have to license it or pay for it, or...
And in some cases, we know that doesn't happen. Let's take EA Sports, which, is a huge video gaming company, and, the kids love EA Sports. Several college athletes, few quarterbacks and some others claim that, their image was used. They were never asked about this. Like, we turn on the video game and there you are, you're playing it. And so the courts agreed with them.
The college situation, especially for athletes when they get a scholarship, is somewhat different. You have a right to publicity, but you have to be very careful because when you sign your scholarship papers and you are handed a bunch of other papers, sometimes you are signing away certain rights. It's kind of like a release form in which you are actually giving the college the right to do certain things.
Well, let's get to Anise just for a second. Do you remember signing away any such rights? Because this happened to you when you played with Bethune-Cookman
Right.
several years ago.
When you're so young, you don't know what you're signing. They just throw a bunch of papers at you. They say, here's your scholarship papers, this is your paper here, and you just sign away at it. Next thing you know, you look up, your picture's on a magazine, your picture's on a billboard, you know, you play a video game. I've seen myself on a video game. Did I know what I was signing? No. Was there anybody to advise me? No.
To take me back just for a minute, what was that like for you? You're at Bethune-Cookman in the Division I NCAA school, and you were on the basketball team, a shooting guard. And what, one day you and your buddies are playing a game, and there you are?
Well, that's just something that my friends did. So when the EA Sports games came out, they would purchase it, you know, because they knew that they could find themselves. So just one day, I just went into the dorm room and said, okay, I'm going to use Bethune-Cookman. And I looked up, and there I was, number 10, right on the screen.
How did you feel? Were you flattered by that? Or were
I was
you thinking,
absolutely
hey,
flattered.
I would have liked to have gotten some
I
money?
was flattered. I can't deny the fact that I wasn't flattered, but at the same time, I felt they could have used at least my last name. I mean, if you're gonna use me, don't try to trick it by just using number 10 and I'm 6'1", you know, 2 guard. At least give me my name or something like that, so there could be something that I could say, oh, this is me.
Mm-hmm. That's not unreasonable, wouldn't you say, Lloyd? I mean,
No,
can that be negotiated on the college level? Probably not.
I don't know that you can negotiate it when you're getting into the area of scholarships. But the whole history of this is really fascinating, and many people don't know this. The whole idea of likeness and image started with a human cannonball. What had happened is many years ago, there was a guy who made his living by putting himself into a cannon. He would shoot himself and be caught into a net. The whole thing took 15 seconds. Scripps Howard, a television company, came in, televised his whole act. He said, forgetting the legalese, he said, hey, you really screwed up my whole act. Now people won't come.
Yeah.
And he sued. And the court, in their infinite wisdom, said that the image of him and his likeness was taken, and it was compensated for.
Well, let's stay with TV for a minute, because
Okay.
TV plays very prominently in 2 other cases that have been playing out. And one is with NFL Films in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, huge powerhouse within the NFL in terms of the old school football gridiron images that we hear so much about, and we've had NFL Films on this program before. Some Hall of Famers said, look, they've been using our image. We never signed away that. Guys like John Riggins, Willie Buchanan, Mike Bass, Dave Casper, Phil Villapiano, Roman Gabriel. These guys are suing, saying that, look, you can't just use our likeness because we don't play anymore.
There is a whole situation where, and it's not only athletes, people don't understand this, but individuals who are not celebrities have a right of publicity as well. So that if you and 11 other sportscasters were to put a calendar together and take a picture and somebody sold it, you would have a right of publicity to go against them.
There's one other case, and then I'm going to move to the next topic, Scottie Pippen, that we talked about at the beginning. This was more of a libel suit, says that when these networks put out that he had filed for bankruptcy, said even though he wasn't playing anymore, you know, it hurt his endorsement deals, it hurt the work he was doing now with companies and corporations that now thought that he was tarnished, and he said he suffered as a result of it. Now he took that all the way to the Circuit Court of Appeals. They ruled against him.
I don't think that case is totally over yet. There might be an appeal that they're thinking about, and that's a much more convoluted set of legal principles, because you're not talking about just image and likeness. You're talking about defamation, whether it's truthful what they were saying. It involves the First Amendment right of freedom of the press, freedom of speech, how involved they actually were in doing what he says is a falsehood. So it's a little bit more convoluted.
And I won't bog it down in legalese, but the judge ruled that there was no causal relationship, meaning that what these TV stations and magazines or whoever it was put out on him by saying that, it didn't necessarily have a cause in doing harm to him professionally, although he says it absolutely did.
I'm not so sure I agree with the judge in this particular instance, in that, yes, while you are at the height of your celebrityness or playing, you have a certain value for endorsements and sponsorships. You don't necessarily lose that as time goes by. There are a number of cases in which you find that the value increases after your playing days. Look at Michael Jackson in the entertainment world and the valuation now. And what you will find is that a lot of states have now taken this whole right of image, and even if one passes away, they have allowed the estate to get value for that likeness or image.
Well, you can tell that you are used to the courtroom, because the judge addressed exactly what you just said, and he further went on to conclude that the theory of causation is weak for a pro athlete whose earnings related to his past stardom drops when he retires. In other words, he's saying that you can't expect that when you are not playing anymore and you're at the height of your stardom, that you are still going to get endorsements at that level because you're not playing anymore. That was the judge's ruling on that, and just what he said. But I want to get back to Anise just for one moment here. This is back to this issue of exploitation. When it comes to the college athlete, now as a former college athlete, and you said that you were flattered when your image was used on EA Sports. I don't blame you, quite frankly. That would have been flattering. You know, it's like if you had got the cover of Sports Illustrated.
It was.
But college athletes, the really good ones, bring in fans to the stadium, just like the pros do. These universities and schools do very, very well in terms of their alumni support. They get television rights when they've got a star player. Take Johnny Manziel right now, and so forth. Should athletes be endorsed for that, or are they being exploited?
I personally believe they're being exploited. If you're making a ton of money, millions of dollars, just because the people are coming to watch that person, and that person, you're taking his jerseys, you're selling his jerseys, the vendors, all these people are coming for them. I feel that they should get at least something, rather than just showing up. And take Manziel, for instance. He signed some autographs that, allegedly he got some money from it. There was no proof. They said that there was no evidence that he got it. Regardless if he did make any money or not, they're selling his jerseys, and his jerseys is selling off the racks like hotcakes. So if anything, maybe he should get $1 here or there.
They won't even let these guys go out to dinner, Lloyd. No. I mean, should these rules be relaxed from the NCAA, or is this really a stranglehold they have on these guys?
This is a debate that has been going on for quite some time. I think there's a tendency when people sit in a high tower in an academic setting, they lose sight of the reality of the world. Why is it? They will argue that you get a scholarship and you get a free ride if you're an athlete. But the real question is, millions of dollars are being made by many, many different sources. And I think there is some way that we could find a formula to compensate athletes. Not a lot, but they're entitled to some money from what people are making off of their backs, literally, when they sell T-shirts.
Yeah. How good was your team when you were at Bethune-Cookman?
We were good. We were good. We were good in our conference. Compared to the other schools, we weren't probably at the same level of a Kentucky. Right. But nonetheless, there should have been. I personally, just to kind of take from what you were saying, I personally believe that not only should the athletes be paid, I believe that the institutions and NCAA should actually acknowledge that they should be paid, rather than lie and say that, oh, we're giving you the scholarship. Because at the end of the day, after they're done with those athletes, there's no place or format for them to help them get a job. There's nothing that the NCAA does that they've set up a system where, like, okay, you're finished playing basketball, your 4 years is done. We've done great. We made it to the NCAA tournament where we get paid. You play against another team when you go to another school. They pay you to come to that school. But after you're done, there's no job systems in place. There's no career path. They don't do anything to help you get to where you want to get in life. It's just, okay, thank you for your services and goodbye.
Feel like you were used and abused and then tossed to the discarded.
Absolutely. And what they say is that you can play basketball. So you have the love for the game, and so they use that to lure you in and say, oh, well, you could play basketball at the highest level. You could be on television. You could be in magazines. And so come play for us. But after that, then what? Then what happens after that?
That's a fair argument.
This whole idea that you can come and play basketball afterwards, the numbers don't prove that.
Less than 1% become professional athletes.
Yeah, if people think of, just as an example, you played basketball, so we'll use that. Think of a triangle.
Okay.
And at the base of the triangle are maybe 500,000 really good neighborhood players. The guys that were always the captain, they could shoot the eyes out of the basketball. You go up that apex and you get to high school. There might be 50,000 good high school players. But when you get to the college level in Division I, you take that number, and when you realize that of that number, if there's 30 teams approximately in 2 rounds, you're talking 60, 70, 80 NBA player level players.
Yeah,
and
those are the ones that will get paid.
Yeah, and of those, only 5 or 10. So it's a real numbers game, and what people don't understand, they're brought in and saying, oh, you'll go on and play ball. It's not going to happen. It is about 1%.
Well, I'm going to have to take a break here, and because I got a lot more I want to talk to you guys about. But again, I got a picture here of Scottie Pippen. He's smiling and everything, but he's like, he probably wasn't very happy when these images of him and everything went out and hurt his reputation, so he says. But I want to come back and want to talk about the entertainment part of it, the entertainment industry, which is a close cousin to this conversation and all part of it as well. We'll be back with more. You're watching Art Fennell Reports right after this. Welcome back to the report. We're talking about athletes at risk and what happens when these athletes' images are put out there in such a way that it is defaming to them, certainly not flattering, and what happens when they're being exploited. People are making money off of their images, but the athletes themselves, particularly on the college level, are not part of the take. Some would say some NFL players are doing the same thing. My guest on the program, Lloyd Remick, is an attorney who concentrates a lot. He's done a lot of work with athletes and entertainers and so forth in this area of law and hospitality and communications. He knows all about it. His company is Zane Management Incorporated in Philadelphia. And also we have Anise Taylor here. Anise is an entertainer and entrepreneur in the Philadelphia area, doing a lot of good things, and a former NCAA Division I basketball player who felt that and feels as though the images of college athletes go unnoticed in terms of compensation. And we've been talking about that. What I want to do now, though, is go into this field of entertainment. And you're in entertainment. Lloyd, you're in entertainment. And for people who are trying to act, or particularly if they're singers or anything of that nature, they would say that many times when it comes to contractual matters, that they are often exploited, that companies or agents may make the money off of them, but they never see it. How big of a deal is that in that part of the industry?
It's a very big part of the deal, and actually, whenever we talk about it, we talk about the business of music, or the music business, and people don't understand that it really is a business. What happens is somebody has a God-given talent, whether they throw a left hook, they sing a song, they play a saxophone, and they really are concerned about getting their career going. They don't realize the implication of what it is that they are contractually signing away. And I've often said that in the entertainment industry, everybody seems to be glib and everybody knows a few buzzwords. And these usually young, but not necessarily do they have to be young, inexperienced talents get taken advantage of.
Anise, you've been doing some work in documentary filming and in music and creating music and so forth. So you're all in that world. Are you concerned about what he just said?
What he said is absolutely right. You know, I've known Lloyd for some time, and people get too caught up in just being famous, you know, and just making music, but they don't understand that it's a business. It's called the music business for a reason, not just a musician. You're actually contracting business. You're making networks. You're going along. It's very important in order to understand that you are getting into a business rather than just you're putting yourself on television or you're trying to sing a song.
Yeah, performance is a big part of because these are talents. They're entertainers, and so they get out and and perform. But in these contracts, sometimes what if they can't perform, or if they perform and they're not compensated and so forth? How ironclad must these contracts be when they're signing onto some of these deals?
Well, there's a plethora of different kinds of contracts. If one is a songwriter, there are publishing and songwriter contracts. If you're a recording artist, you normally sign a 20 or a 30-page recording contract, and about 20 or 30 pages minus 3 sentences are taking away from what you think you're getting. And in the same light, as we often say, no man is an island. You put a team around the celebrity, and part of that team is an agent or a manager. And a manager has a contract, and they take a percentage. And then there are agents, and the agent's function is to book you gigs or performances, and they take a percentage. You have to be very careful.
We see
important.
We see all the time, and even funny television commercials about agents storming into the room when the band is in there and he's getting on them about this and that. Anise, in your experience and what you've seen, do these agents and managers do a good job of protecting these artists? Particularly, you have others who are infiltrating the group, young ladies who are interested in getting next to these guys, groupies who would love to become pregnant so they can get paid and so forth. Do you see?
Some do. Some agents are good. Some management is good. I think it's your personal preference, though. You have to understand what you're bringing to the table, and you have to understand about surrounding yourself with the right people that have the same vision as you. It's really about your team, which Lloyd said, because you have to have a management that's on the same page as you. You have to have, if you're an actor, if you're a singer, whatever you are, you have to be on the same page, because if you're not, if you're just, like I mentioned, the word fame, if you're just caught up in just being famous and that's the only thing you're thinking about, somebody could just be taking all your money. They could put you in front of a camera 1,000,000 times, but you might not get a cent. A lot of singers, a lot of entertainers out there, that tends to be the case. So it's really about that team that you're building around you.
Lloyd, how do you, from a legal standpoint, you have to contract with all of the people that you just talked about, the agents and the managers and so forth and so on. Is that a tough mission? Because, as you say, everyone's got their hand out, and sometimes the artist might be the last one.
Well, of course, it's tough, but when you keep doing it continually, you get to a point where you understand what needs to be done. There is kind of a formula for success. And if one is a writer or a publisher, or I'm an artist singing a song, some of the very first steps that you take, you drop back a minute and you worry about the intellectual property protection. If somebody writes a song, you don't want it being taken, stolen, or ripped off. So you should file a copyright. And that is not, as many people think, sending it to themselves in a sealed letter. I hear that all the time.
I've heard that.
You actually file it with the United States Copyright Office. And then if you were writing a film script, you can, for just a small amount of money, I think it's $25 or $30, file a copy of it with the Writers Guild, the Writers Guild of America, east or west, depending on what side of the Mississippi, and that gives you some protection. But
Sure.
yeah,
Bottom line is this, because we know that this is a multifaceted discussion, but you're saying that entertainers, athletes, and everyone, you have to be protective of your image, correct? Be protective of it at
Know your
all
stuff.
costs.
Read, know your stuff, know what you're signing,
Sure.
understand that, and keep a good team around you.
Keep a good team around you. Well, we're going to have to leave it right there. You know, this is important. You know, these stories are going to keep coming in the headlines that we started out talking about from the athlete side and from the entertainer side as well. But let's hope that everyone has good counsel around them. Thank you so much for being
Thank
part
you.
of the program.
Nice being
and,
here.
I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I always learn a lot on this show. Thank you for being there as well. I'm Art Fennell. We'll see you again next time on The Report.